Ready to embrace the magical side of life, where anything is possible and the infinite is accessible to all? Let's have a conscious conversation about what's going on in the world, in your life, and your relationship from the expanded perspective of your soul. The path to awareness begins and ends in the heart. So let's take it there, one step at a time, and learn to cultivate magic in your life every single day. In each episode, we share a collective space in which we discover the unique facets of our own magic and embody our superhuman qualities by humbly exploring how it's super simply to be human. Hosts Kai and Del co-create a magical experience to remind you that you are magical as fuck. Now, be unleashed. This is our daily magic.
Welcome. We have got an interesting episode today where I'm going to start off by reading some passages from this book. And just let me know when you're here. So this is talking about this whole book is about, you can see it, it's called The Right Use of Will. And it's a book about healing and evolving the emotional body, and something that I've been reading for maybe even a year now. And every once in a while, I'll open it up and just turn to a random page and see what it says. The basic gist of the book is talking about free will and also how that relates to our emotions. So I just turned to a page here, and this says that this chapter just happens to be about free will between people. It says, many have thought that compromise was necessary, but compromise is a judgment, usually in advance of the experience that the entirety of the proposal is not appropriate or possible. Hello. People can come to agreement freely. Change here needs to come and is going to come as a result of the process of freeing your own will. That sounds like Matrix talk to me, for those of you who are fans of the movie The Matrix. It says, in having believed that free will carries complications requiring compromise, change here needs to come and is going to come as a result of the process of freeing your own will. The experience itself is needed to learn how it can actually take place, that everyone can do exactly as he or she wishes without having to compromise, be overridden by another, or be overriding toward another. Hey, Mella, welcome. Just to catch you up, we're reading a passage from this book called The Right Use of Will. It says, many people had feelings trying to surface in their wills, telling them that this is all originated within them, and there are many reactions to this. The direct approach could solve the problems that these denials have been trying to avoid, but there has been such a large buildup of distrust and held emotions, especially blame, that may have not been wanting to take responsibility. And just to catch you up, Mella, we're talking about the dynamic of will and emotion within oneself. It says if people don't fit the form, they're supposed to make themselves fit the form. And this is backwards. Form is supposed to fit people and the situation, but when denials are involved, it also reflects the denials. So this is talking about freeing the self from the inside out And once freed, then there are no longer any denials about freedom or about will or about emotion. It says when denials have reached the point where they seem to be more powerful than the self that originally made the denials, this could be called intimidating form. Settlement needs to feel right to all parties involved. However, unless there is a movement in the will, like literally you can feel it in the body, that our will moves around. There's a phrase that says bending your will, and it's actually, I can see how it is referring to a visceral experience in the body. It says settlement needs to feel right to all parties involved. However, unless there is movement in the will, there can be no real settlement. The guideline here is that no one has the right to force anything on another. Do not impose your approach on others, and do not let others impose their approach on you. As you try this out, you can find out how difficult this can be for you, which will let you know how much guilt you have and what judgments you may have held against taking care of self. So what's really interesting about this is that yesterday I had a situation where there was something that I wanted to do, and also I wanted to make myself available. So like I wanted to free up some time so that I could be really present to something. And I was like, I felt a moment of paralysis in that moment. I was like, oh no, what do I do? Do I need to either not do something, and this text is referring to it as compromise, or is there another way? And I sat with it for a moment. And what was interesting is that I received like a solution that contained all sets of what the possibility was that I wanted to create. So it was really interesting that I compromise, just like this book is saying, was not necessary. It's like we can all have what we want, like all of it. It doesn't have to be like an and or. It can be a both if we're open to the solution. So this is really, really interesting stuff that they're talking about here. So it says, as you gain information in this way, you can respond to your own needs and also create freedom for other people to state their needs. And allowing yourself to meet your own needs, try to get to the bottom of them by seeking the source of the needs rather than staying at the symptomatic level. And that was exactly what happened. I was like, well, what do I actually want to experience out of this situation? And I had needed to go to the store, and also I wanted to create some space to be on a call. And I was like, okay, well, I could go to the store and take the call there. It was Whole Foods, by the way, because they have like really cool seating in there. And then I was like, well, what do I really want to get out of that experience? I was like, well, I want to go into the store. I want to get my lunch from there because it's really cool location. So I sat with it and I was like, oh, either I can do one or the other. And then magically, I got the inspiration to create a solution where I could do both. So it was great. It says, if your answer is that you don't know, stay open to further understandings coming later. Denials leave the self feeling incomplete. This is why trying to meet your needs might still leave you feeling unfulfilled. Nonetheless, meeting your needs is still an important step in healing yourself, not only to help you understand why you have the needs, but also for increasing self-acceptance and self-love. For example, you do not need to let other people tell you how you should be relating to them. Instead, you can let that person express his or her feelings toward you, and let yourself feel whatever you feel in response to that. Your emotions are for you to feel and express. Hi, Rosemary. Hi, Miranda. Hi, Mella. Feel free to interject with any experiences that you have had along these lines, or anything magical that you are experiencing today. So it says your emotions are for you to feel and express, not for the purpose of judging, coercing, or manipulating others. The amount of denial and backed up emotions can make a direct approach between people attempting to resolve conflict seem impossible, and sometimes it is. Violence is the last resort of repressed will. So again, we're getting at the fact that there is something inside of us that really wants to be expressed. And if we keep pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down, then it may even be expressed violently as a result of self-oppression, or what we call repression. So the repressed will, some spirits have denied their own wills. That's like, I'm trying to think here. It's like we get to have a body, we get to have a mind, we get to have a spirit, and ignoring any three of those in pursuit of one goal that's aligned, only with one of those areas. Hey, Peter, welcome. Then it's what we call off balance or unbalanced, right? So what this is saying is that sometimes the will gets ignored in pursuit of paying attention to the other realms of being. So some spirits have denied their own wills so extensively that any additional denial by other people can cause them to erupt in violence. You can protect yourself by realizing what is happening in your relationships with others. As you notice denial in yourself, you can more easily notice it in others. You cannot deny yourself without denying others. That's important too. A lot of times we think that the healing work that's being done is just for us, when in fact you're actually impacting the world that you live in. So continuing on, it says, for example, if you deny yourself in order to do something for another, how is that other person likely to feel if you are doing something for them that you do not really want to do? It either does not feel good, or there is denial of how it feels. If you really do want to do something for another, do not claim you're doing it just for them. Undercurrent here is the judgment that the one denying self in favor of another is in the spiritually superior position. Attempting to balance this later by allowing others to sacrifice themselves for you is not appropriate either. Feeling this is what will let you know that this inner wisdom, this inner light is present. Let me know how this is resonating with you. Hello, I see you in the chat. Have you had any experience like this, whether it's the denial of the will or denying yourself in some manner, and just wondering, well, how does that affect your reality? We're gonna keep getting into it here. And this paragraph sums it up. It says, time is short on earth for ending denials, but intent can help open space for you to make these shifts. Even though you've already seen who is ready to make the shifts now necessary, it is you who gets to have a sincere intent to heal. You can make an open declaration of your intent from your heart to the higher power of your understanding to simply guide you through that experience. The recovery of your own true feelings is your survival path. And this is the last little bit here. It says, accept your heart, your inner being, your inner wisdom as the kind creator who cares about what he has created. And we're talking about the higher power of your understanding. And accept that loving light is willing to help you. You can say out loud what your intent is currently and communicate frequently Whenever you're moving through your emotions and or recognizing and releasing judgments, simply ask to come into these places where you've held yourself apart from your inner loving light. Ask for help as often as you need, but do not expect it to be done for you, because it's an opportunity to take responsibility for yourself. Okay, what are you getting from all that? Because that is so intriguing, interesting, and it seems like it could apply to just about everything. You know, I had that little experience yesterday, you know, with just deciding who it is that I wanted to be in the moment and how it is that I wanted to make that, how I wanted to be in that experience. And it was a bit surprising to me that compromise wasn't necessary. I was like, oh, wow. Oh, wow, the solution set is available. And it reminds me that we just don't know what we don't know. From a simple thing like, I can believe whatever I want. That's a statement that I don't take for granted. It took a lot of inner healing and a lot of inner work to understand that. I thought that for a long time, that there was a right and a wrong belief, that there were possible and impossible things. But understanding that all is possible and that healing self is healing the world, these are things that, again, are just not taken for granted. And as often as I can be reminded myself and remind others, so happy to do that. So happy to do that. Thank you, Rosemary. Rosemary says, it is beautiful because I see how denying my expression correlates with feeling hurt or disconnected from divine will. Exactly. Trying to reject any feelings will also affect the feelings and receiving of love. Right. Noticing just how being open to joy releases all resistance to our doings. That is huge. Thank you so much, Rosemary. And welcome to the live stream, Sienna. Good to see you here. Rosemary says, all is possible is so beautiful. Thank you so much. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. It's a journey, right? We start from where we are and we get to discover and experience the places that we haven't seen or been before, in one sense of the phrase. There is a part of us who has been here before, perhaps, and simply reminding us that this is the fact that all is possible. And to be able to step into that belief with trust, to be able to step into that belief with absolute complete faith and surrender, I like to call that the fun part and where the magic happens. Yeah. So again, the name of this book, just in case you want to check it out, and it's a series, it's one of, I think there's like 7. And shout out to Juju for recommending this book to me. It's called The Right Use of Will, Healing and Evolving the Emotional Body. I was having a conversation yesterday and I was reminded that the body is the subconscious mind. So when we do things like fasting, when we do things like juice cleanses, we are literally reprogramming our subconscious mind by diving into the cells of our bodies and either nourishing them with actual physical nutrients or energetic nutrients. All of the energy that we put out into the world are like feelers that we put into our physical realm. And it's like, oh, I'm reaching for the things that I desire, the things that I want, or what it is that I want to create. Hey, Allison, welcome to the live stream. We're talking about divine will. All of the feelers that we put out for, okay, what's next? What's to do now? That gets turned back in and the attention is put on us when we do things like a devotional practice, aka juicing, fasting, even just prayer or meditation. That's why it's so healing. That's why we get to be in touch with the infinite, because in those instances, we are being infinite. Having the attention that is me on me, and having that feed me and nourish me and give me the attention that I can continue to expand on me. And the loop continues and continues and continues. That's why self-love is so important. Just putting all of that energy back into self, or back into perceived self. Because if we perceive others as part of self, then in that belief and in that moment, then it may feel like a similar infinite loop. But it depends on how it is that we are perceiving ourselves in that moment, in our actions. If we're perceiving an other and we're perceiving a not self, then yeah, then it can feel like it's not sustainable. So this is very, very interesting part of, I guess we can call this like holistic anatomy, quantum physics. Hi, Fontaine, welcome to the live stream. We're talking about divine will and how divine will can tend to be denied in the face of our emotions or in the face of others. So I'd love to hear, feel free to continue sharing. Thank you so much, Rosemary. That was a beautiful summation that you shared. Yeah, all is possible. Where do you find yourself? Hi, Fontaine. If at all, doing things like compromising, or what is your devotional practice that brings all of that energetics back into you so that it can continue that sustainable cycle of healing and realization? And that could be that special brand of realization that we call self-realization. All of it is of the same essence. It's a coming back to self. It's bringing that attention back home. And that creates this fusion that allows us to continue with an infinite mind and an infinite self. Allison says, by divine will, do you mean following the will of source within me? Well, how do you see it? If that's how you see it, then that's the right answer for you. Not that there is a right or a wrong here. If you, by using the term divine will, if you mean following the will of source within you, then absolutely. And is there a time ever where you're like, nah, I'm going to do this instead? Fontaine says, compromising, doing that a lot lately. Got it. Love to hear about it. It is curious under what circumstances that comes up in our experience, and what do we do about it? Or who do we be about it? One way is being with it. taking a moment to listen to what it's trying to tell you. A lot of times we can get an urge, like an urge to do something. And then the questions can start coming up. All right, well, where is that urge coming from? What is at the core of that particular urge? What's the essence of it? And then understanding that can open up the door to a deeper resolution. Rather than, like the book was saying earlier, having it be symptomatic or just surface level, or tending only to the surface level of what's coming up. Going just a bit deeper and being willing to attain an understanding from there can absolutely open up doors to deeper understanding and deeper fulfillment. It's like, Allison says, it does take trust and believing. Got it. Those two are definitely tools, right? Trust, belief, intent. I think that intent is accompanied with belief, right? You intend to do things that you believe can be done, or maybe not. So welcome. Thank you, Allison. And it's an exploration, because we may not know what it is that we're going to find, but just diving in and being daring to make that intention or to acquire that belief. This is akin to programming your being. And you have an infinite number of programs to choose from. So if one day you want to take on the belief that compromising is not necessary, I wonder what will show up for you. And we're talking internally and externally. Maybe a part of me feels this and a part of me feels that. What if you don't have to compromise between those two parts? What if there is a solution set that accompanies both of them? And then having that kind of internal dynamic be reflected in the external world. To me, that sounds exciting. And however it sounds to you is absolutely okay too. Awesome. Yeah. So starting with that internal dynamic and getting really present to it and having it be what it is that you choose, that's what devotion can look like. I mean, it can look like anything. And this is one of the ways that it can be expressed. Co-creating with divine will in that very moment to give you the experience that is your life. Programming the being that is you. And having that embodied expression be seen, felt, heard, and witnessed and experienced out in the world. This is what we are doing by being consciously aware. It's being deliberate, being intentional, or simply observing. There is a saying in quantum physics that the experiment is not the same with a different observer. And just drop an emoji in the comments if you've heard of the double slit experiment in quantum physics. or if you've heard of quantum entanglement. And I'll give a little summary about that, but what it's talking about, Fontaine said, woof, right? Yes. Allison says, no, got it, got it. We'll do a quick summary. And that is that at the atomic level, our material world is comprised of photons. I mean, there are other atomic elements, but photons are the things that we see. That's how we can quantify. That's what quantum physics is, quanta. We can quantify light in photons. That's what we see. And what happens is that photons, they exist in two forms. Photons exist as waves, and also they exist as particles. What's interesting is that photons and waves become particles when we observe them. Isn't that interesting? It's like an ocean that turns into a pond just because we're looking at it. Photons represent the infinite nature of our reality because they exist as a wave, which is a set of possibilities where that photon could exist in a singular spot as a particle. Until it is observed, it literally exists as a wave of possibility. And then when we look at it, it turns into what it is that we're focusing on. So crazy, right? So what happens when you have one person looking at a photon and you have another person looking at a photon or photon wave? Then it turns into what they are having their attention on. So if you have two people focusing, they're both creating essentially their own reality. If I'm looking at a photon wave and I focus on it and it turns into a particle, I'm materializing what it is that my focus is on. And other people can only materialize what it is that they're focusing on. So it will always be different depending on the observer. Right? Interesting. So it's an opportunity to really be responsible for what it is that we're focusing on and creating. Because it's up to us to turn that wave of possibility into a particle. Otherwise, it just stays possibility. And I mean, like, yeah, a possibility is fun to play with in terms of, imagination and creative thinking and, things like meditation. I love what you just said, Allison, because we can really break that down, right? Allison says, so you only see what you focus on. Is that true? Have a look in your reality. Can you see what you're not focused on? And I mean focused in the generalized sense. Maybe you're lightly focused on it. Maybe you're peripherally focused on it. You're still focused on it. Can you see what you're not focused on? It's a nice experiment, right? So yeah, this is upping the ante on our responsibility. I can't count on another observer to create something and focus on something for me. That would be silly. Not for me, but we can do it together. This is great. No kidding. Thanks, Allison. Yeah. So all of that from a little passage on divine will, and really just sitting into that there are more possibilities than we think. And we can create the possibility of both. In the quantum physics realm, and also in our material 3D reality and beyond, in terms of our infinite divine will. So we just looked at infinite possibility in 3 ways. Now, I wonder what that looks like when you go and use it out in your world. And love to hear about it. Feel free to post your comment on this live anytime during the week. And we've been given the tools to be able to do this. Innate tools, belief and trust, as Allison said earlier. And also now this understanding if you choose to take it on. What does it look like when we are all co-creating in cooperation, harmoniously, putting our focus on something that we wish to create and bring into reality together? Well, let's find out. We've got a whole week to do it and beyond. And this is a great conversation. And just a reminder of where the conversation began is within you. Are your parts of self communicating with each other? And do they understand that they don't have to compromise? They don't have to. They're welcome to, but they don't have to. What kind of world would that be like? And making space for all possibilities. Really leaning into that all is possible. And what that means for you. This is another magical moment brought to you by Our Daily Magic. And for those of you who are interested or who have seen it already, there is a special tarot/oracle design, how to design your own custom tarot oracle card deck event going on tonight, 7 to 9 Eastern Standard or Eastern DT. I don't know what the time zone stuff is now, but it's 7 Eastern. And we're going to dive into what it looks like to do that. So feel free to reach out, RSVP for the event that's in the group or on the website, and I'll see you there. Stay magical.